Hey everybody, welcome back to the Maker's Gonna Learn YouTube channel. My name's Alicia, I'm a craft producer here with Maker's Gonna Learn, and today I'm gonna be showing you guys a super fun tumbler technique. These are the cat scratch tumblers. You've probably seen them all over TikTok, all over the internet. We wanted to test this technique out for ourselves. If you missed it, we did a live on this previously. This was actually the tumbler that we did in that video, but I wanted to show you guys how to lay out your pattern if you wanted to kind of make your own pattern. And I wanted to really go into the depth with you guys on all of our tips and tricks that we learned whenever we started doing this technique as well. Let's go ahead and go over all of the supplies and make sure you guys have everything you need before we get started. Okay, so it looks like we've got a lot going on right here. We kind of have like our tumbler supplies, and then we have our resin supplies that we're going to be using to actually seal the cup after we make it. So let's go ahead and just get started with like our cat scratch stuff that we need. So I've got the cat scratch paper. So this is a double-sided adhesive. So it's blue on one side, white on one side, and it's sticky on both sides. So they make many different double-sided adhesives. We tried a couple different ones. The cat scratch tape was my favorite personally. It cuts well, it lays well whenever we go to put it onto our actual cup. We link this below for you guys so you can grab it off of Amazon. And then I've got some copy paper and some masking tape, and I will show you guys what to do with this. This is so we don't get our glitters all mixed up, because we're going to be using an excessive amount of glitter, and I don't want to mix all of our colors together. So that's going to be a little hack for you guys. I've got a brayer, a true control knife. I have a couple different paint brushes. This is my dusting brush, so this dusts off all of the excess glitter, and you can see glitter coming off of it as I shake it. And then I've got this one that kind of gets more into the details and the crevices of our design. So two different size brushes there. I have a weeding tool, a burnishing tool, a pair of scissors, measuring tape. I've got a standard grip mat. This is the Dew Halo mats. These are off of Amazon. This is just a standard grip mat, so any standard grip mat will work for this. We're going to be basically using a sticker setting to cut our cat scratch tape. So that's all you're going to need for the cutting process. And then for the epoxy process, you're going to need, you can use whatever you're comfortable with. I found that the UV resin was a little bit sticky. It didn't cure the way I wanted, but this 2-part clear coating and casting resin worked amazing. We got this at Hobby Lobby. You can buy it off of Amazon as well. And then you're just going to need some tongue depressors to mix up your resin, and then like a measuring cup. I've got a mask. If you're not in a well-ventilated area, make sure you're wearing the proper protection when you're handling resin. I have a cup turner. Love this hot pink cup turner. It works so good for us. Got a pair of gloves, some alcohol and paper towels. This is just to clean up our tumbler before we actually apply the cat scratch tape. And then I have a straight tumbler that we're going to be using today. This is what we're going to end up making, so you can see the difference here. This is just like a plain white. We bought it white, we didn't paint it. This method is really good if you are an avid tumbler maker and you have like a mess up. This covers really well, so you could use just like a scrap tumbler. I just prefer the straight edge for this technique. And then obviously I've got all the glitter colors. So glitters of your choice, whatever color scheme you want to do. We're going to do a really fun, colorful color scheme today. You're going to need Windex. This is when we actually go to apply the cat scratch. We're going to be spraying this on the back of it. Really cool technique. I just learned that during the process of learning everything about cat scratch. You guys are going to love this technique, and you're probably going to be able to use it for lots of different things. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so before we get started, I'm just gonna go ahead, pop that lid out. I want to measure my tumbler. So a lot of people will ask, I have a 20-ounce tumbler. How big does my cat scratch base need to be? It's really gonna depend, because a 20-ounce tumbler can be shorter and wider or taller and skinnier. So make sure you're measuring your individual tumbler every single time that you make one. I like to get as precise as I possibly can on these measurements. So I'm just measuring around this top edge. This is gonna be our width. So this one is coming to 9 3/8. And then I'm gonna measure from top to bottom, and I don't wanna go past this curvature on the bottom. So like, technically I would say this is like 8.5, but I'm gonna do 8 3/8 just so I'm not getting super, super close to the bottom. So our measurements will be 9 3/8 by 8 3/8. So you can either make your own design, or we have tons of cut files in the Maker's Gonna Learn library of different patterns that you can use. We have done this exact project using our tropical leaf pattern. I would recommend something that is not super intricate for your first design, but you can do something like super simple, like hearts. Or let's go to the next page and I'll show you guys a couple other different patterns that we offer. This imperfect chevron, the leafy stem would be super cute. And you can use any of these to do your design. There's a wide range of simple to a little bit more difficult. Like something like this mandala is going to be a little bit more difficult compared to the mud cloth. So those are just some options that you all have as members. If you're new to our channel, we are a membership-based crafting community. We offer tons of cut files and fonts every single month. We do private projects in our Facebook group as well as content on our YouTube channel, and we would love for you guys to be a part of it. If you guys are interested, there is a link below in the description and you can join our crafty community. So once you're in Design Space, we're gonna start by pulling in a square. I've already got my images pulled up over here. These are all Maker's Gonna Learn images. You can use these. You can use whatever cute little relatable images you wanna put on your cup. I feel like this is a very groovy, like super retro inspired, and I love the vibe of it. So I'm gonna make my square the exact measurements that we measured on our tumbler. So the width was 9 3/8, which is 9.375 by 8.375. So this is gonna be our base. So all of our design needs to fit within these parameters. And we can actually turn this into a guide for the moment. And what I'm gonna do is start pulling in my images, and I'm just gonna put them in wherever I want, whatever my heart desires and whatever I think looks good. And I am just going to bring them all to the front. That way we can actually see them. You are gonna have to shrink them down a little bit. I would recommend anything with words that it's a little bit bigger. That way you're not losing the text, because the glitter, it's pretty sharp, like you can see it pretty good, but if you have it too small, it may get a little bit fuzzy, and you just really want to be able to like see the words. If you're going to put words on here, you want to be able to actually read them. So make sure you're bringing all your images to the front. You can also rotate these a little bit. I kind of wanted it to look like we've put stickers all over our tumbler. I think that's such a cute idea. So you can tilt these a little bit, shrink them to fit. These glasses are my favorite. They're so cute. And I did not bring it to the front, so every time I go to grab it, it's gonna pull that guideline around, so make sure you're pulling those images up. Okay, so I have all of my images in there, and I feel like there's still a lot of empty space. So what I'm gonna do is actually grab some stars just from our shapes panel. I'm gonna grab this star right here, and I'm gonna place these in any holes that I want. You can resize them. I just basically place them where I want. I'll duplicate it, resize it, and maybe rotate it a little bit. And this is just to fill in some negative space. I feel like this makes it look a little bit boho. I love it. I love how it looks. So I'm gonna pull these all over in any holes that I might see. If you place anything at the bottom edge, it's gonna get cut off if it's right across this guideline. That's okay for me. If you don't like that, just make sure you're paying attention. I kind of like it to go off the edge a little bit, so I'm okay with it. So once you have everything exactly where you want it, I am going to put this on to the basic cut function. And what we're gonna do is slice everything in this design out of our base layer. So everything is here. What I'll do first, because your image won't slice, if you have like multiple images here and then you try to slice it out of here, you can't slice that many images at a time. So I'm basically gonna need to make this into one image. You can weld it together, you can attach it, either way is gonna work. And then I'm just gonna line it back up I'm gonna select everything and then we're gonna slice it out. So you're not gonna need that. You're not gonna need this. None of these that were hanging off. We are literally just gonna need this image. I'm gonna go ahead, make sure your Cricut is set up to the correct Cricut machine, and we're gonna go ahead and make it. Once you get to this screen, you're not gonna need to mirror it. We're just gonna go ahead and put our cat scratch tape on our standard grip mat, and then we will send it through the Cricut. Okay, so I've got my standard grip mat here and my cat scratch tape. I wanna make sure to put the white side down. And there are different sizes when you buy your cat scratch packaging. There's different sizes of the cat scratch tape in there. So make sure, depending on the size of your tumbler, that you're going all the way as long or as wide as you need to whenever you're laying out your cat scratch tape. So I know that my tumbler is no longer than 8 3/4, so I'm covered down here. And I know that it's no wider than 9 3/4, so I know I've got enough room over here as well. So make sure that you braid this down really well. If you don't trust your mat, you can always add painter's tape around the edges before you cut. But mine is gonna be pretty sticky. So let's go back into Design Space and I'm gonna show you all what cut settings to use. So we're gonna select continue and we're going to connect to our maker, and then I'm going to browse all materials, and we're gonna be using the sticker paper setting, and I'm gonna be using sticker paper removable. I'm gonna keep the pressure at default, and we're gonna use a fine point blade. Before you all send your mat through the cutter, I want you to make sure that your housing is very clean. You can just kind of push your button up and make sure that it's super clean around the edges. And if you need a new blade, like if you've been putting it off, go ahead and put that new blade in there. We want to have a really crispy cut on these designs. We're just going to put that back into our maker and we will slide our mat in. Go ahead and get started. Okay, so while that's cutting, I wanted to show you guys something I do in order to prevent all of my glitters from mixing together. So you're just gonna need some masking tape, painter's tape, whatever, just any kind of tape that I can put these 2 sheets of paper together. So the tumbler, like if I just used 1 sheet of paper, it's gonna kind of hang off the edges a little bit. So I just take 2 pieces of copy paper and I'm gonna put a piece of masking tape right up the middle, and I'm gonna do a set of paper sheets per glitter. So I've got 7 glitters, so I would need 14 sheets of paper, if that makes sense. Now, if you're comfortable just reusing the same sheet of paper for each glitter, that's totally fine too. I just don't want my glitters to start getting murky if I'm combining brown into the white or yellow into the pink and things like that. So I'm just gonna tape all of these together. That way they're ready to go once we start applying glitter. Another thing we want to do while our template is cutting out is clean our tumbler with some alcohol just to make sure there's no residue. And we get these little alcohol pumps from the Dollar Tree. They're so good. And I'm just using like a basic paper towel to clean off my surface. Now that our design is cut out, what we're gonna do, you can kind of plan out your colors. With this specific design, I'm just gonna kind of go with my instincts. I do, however, want to use my darkest colors first. So anything on my design, which you all may not be able to see this design super well until I actually start weeding it out. But I want to go in and do anything that I want to be my darkest color first. So I've got all my colors laid out so I can see exactly which ones I'm going to be needing. And my darkest color that I have is this dark blue. Now you can refer to your computer screen if that helps you see your design a little bit better. You could print off like a preview of your design if you wanted to, if that makes it easier. But what I'm gonna do is basically just find anything in my design that I wanna use this dark blue. These are the Starcraft glitters from 143 Vinyl. They are very, very fine and they're so beautiful. They're my favorite glitters to use. I would say that we've probably got one in every color. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick out which parts that I want to weed out that I want to be our dark blue. Okay, so I have quite a bit of colors, so I'm just gonna do very few things in the very dark blue, but I'm only weeding out the things that I want to be the dark blue. So I'm not weeding out anything else. If I weeded out something that I didn't want to be blue, the blue is going to get all over it. So I went ahead, weeded that out. And what I'm going to do next is sprinkle this on top of the areas that I want to be this color. So I'm going to use where there's the tiny holes. I don't want to like pour out a whole bunch. I just need to sprinkle it where I want it. And remember, you want to start with your darkest colors first. And then I'm going to take my smaller brush and just kind of lightly dust over this to make sure that everything gets covered that needs to be covered. And then what you can do, kind of tap off your brush. I've got a trash can sitting right beside me. That way I can tap my brush off there. And then I'm going to tap the glitter off of my paper onto my copy paper. And then we're just going to empty that excess glitter back into our bottle. And I'm going to do this over the trash can so that I don't make a huge mess. Another thing you can do is take your big brush and kind of dust any of these extra little pieces of glitter. You can dust this off into the trash can as well. So the next color I'm going to be using is this purple. I just need to decide which parts of the design I want to be this color. Let's do some of these smaller flowers right here. I feel like those would be really cute in this color. Okay. So basically the rest of the colors I have are all pretty much the same darkness, I would say. These three are probably the top contenders. I'm thinking I want this one to be my background color. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and let's do our pink. And I'm gonna make all of my stars pink. Now I do have a star here at the bottom. And what I'm gonna do, it didn't cut at this very bottom edge. So I'm just taking a true control knife and kind of chopping that off. Okay, so I'm actually gonna be doing the outline of my daisies in the dark blue. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that right now before I start using any super light colors. So I'm just gonna make the outlines of all my daisies in the first dark blue color that I used. And I'm gonna make the smiley faces in dark blue as well. Okay, so I was gonna do my words in white and I'm gonna go ahead and do it, but my background color is gonna be this. So it's a little bit darker than the white, but I had already started weeding this. So I'm committed. I'm gonna go ahead and do my white there. If we have to go back and sprinkle some more white on top of it at the end, we will. I'm gonna do anything else. That's why I'm gonna wait to do until after I do my background. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do my background. So just make sure you're very careful when you're weeding this. You don't wanna pull up anything that doesn't need to come off. Okay, so once you have the majority of the background taken out, make sure you go through and get the middles of any letters that need to be the background color. Go ahead and get all of those out. And also I noticed that I accidentally left a star here. That's totally fine. We can go back and fill that in later. It's not a huge deal, like if you get your colors out of order. It just helps if you go darkest to lightest, but it's not gonna mess up your design if you accidentally like miss a dark color from the beginning. Like it's not gonna mess anything up. Your design's still gonna look really good. So once everything is weeded out, we're just gonna take our background color. And you're gonna need a lot, so you can use the open side for this one if you want. Just be super careful. And we're just gonna kind of sprinkle this all the way around. And it's gonna be very nerve-wracking because you're going right on top of everything, but I promise it's okay. This is the way to do it. This time I'm just gonna take my big brush and kind of move this all around, being very careful around my intricate designs, especially if we haven't actually applied any glitter to them yet. Okay, so once it's spread out, we're gonna dump all this excess onto our paper. And you can take your brush and kind of dust off if there's any excess. So we've got our background color, very pretty. I'm gonna go ahead and take this cap off since this is a lot of glitter. I wanna make sure I've got both hands ready to go. And we're just gonna kind of fold this up and we're gonna dump it over the trash can. Okay, so the next color I'm gonna do is my yellow. I'm starting to think I'm probably not gonna use this green. I'm just gonna sit it to the side. We may end up using it, we may not. But I'm gonna do the smiley faces yellow, and I'm gonna do the hand yellow, And I might do the lens of the glasses yellow as well. Okay, and then anything that I have left, I am going to do in white. I've got all of my flower petals and the Feelin' Groovy as well as these lenses. So I think I'm gonna make the background of the Feelin' Groovy this purple color just because I want to see a little bit more of it. So I'm just gonna pull this off, pull out the middles of these letters and the middle of the flowers. And I also forgot some of the petals over here on our purple flower, so let's go ahead and get those too. And I think I'm going to make the Feelin' Groovy the same as our background color. The only thing I have left are the middle of these flowers, and I think I'm going to make them all yellow. Okay, so everything is totally glittered, and the next thing I'm gonna do is cut out all the way around the edges, and I'm just gonna be using my scissors for this. You could technically have done this before we did the glitter. It's totally just personal preference. Just make sure it gets done. Okay, so once our design is cut out, you can kind of clean up your table if you need to. I'm just gonna kind of wipe all of this glitter out of the way, and then I'm gonna flip my design face down, and I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I've got my tumbler really close by. I'm gonna grab my Windex, and what we're gonna do is peel off this backing. So I'm just gonna peel this off. This is super sticky on the back. I had some little excess of the blue on the front still there. You can make sure, once we flip it over, if there's any blue on the front, So once you've peeled off your backer, go ahead and take your Windex, and we're gonna spray the entire thing. Be very generous. This will dry, and we're gonna let it dry before we apply our resin. And what I'm gonna do is turn it this way and lay it flat, and then make sure the opening of your cup is at the top of your design, and we're gonna kind of line it up. And the good thing about this Windex is that once it's on here, it's movable. So I can wrap this entire tumbler, and if it's off a little bit, we can kind of scoot it around until we get it where we want it. Okay, so we've got it on our tumbler. I'm gonna let this Windex dry, and then we will apply the resin. Now that we have our design on our tumbler, the next step is going to be to apply resin. That way, everything, all of our artwork is sealed in, and this is actually going to be food safe after we seal everything and it's cured for 72 hours. So we have our cup turner here. I do have our mask that you need to wear if you are working with resin. And then we have a 2-part resin we're using today. Now, a lot of people will use UV resin. It really just depends on what you're comfortable with. I feel like we had a better result with this type of resin, so that's why I used it. Make sure that you are wearing gloves whenever you go to mix this. I'm gonna go ahead and put mine on. And we're gonna go ahead and mix this resin. Make sure you've got your mask on, and we will start mixing everything. We're gonna do equal parts of both. So let's see, I've got this cup right here. I'm gonna be going to the 30 mark and then again to the 60 mark with the second part. That way we've got equal parts of both. If you're in a well-ventilated area, you don't necessarily have to wear the mask, but if you are not, make sure that you are following all the proper safety procedures. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in our first portion. I'm pouring this to the 30 mark, and then I'm gonna take my second bottle. This is the B side, and I'm gonna pour the same exact amount. So you need to have equal parts of both. And then we're going to mix these very slowly over 5 minutes. You don't wanna mix it too fast or you're gonna get a lot of bubbles. And you may find that it heats up a little bit, and that is normal. Just make sure you are stirring very slow. So now that our resin is mixed, we're gonna go ahead and put our cup onto our tumbler turner, just like this, and make sure it is plugged up, and go ahead and turn it on so it starts spinning. You can place a couple paper towels underneath there. That way, if any of the resin does kind of run off of the cup, it's gonna get caught by the paper towel. And what I like to do is just a little bit of this at a time, and then I keep my gloves on and run my finger along with the resin. So it kind of takes a little bit to get into a good rhythm. And honestly, you're gonna find what works best for you. This is just what works best for me. So now that we've let this cure for a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off and show you guys the final product. I would let it cure for 24 to 48 more hours. 72 hours is technically food safe, but it'll harden by this time tomorrow, but it's not technically fully cured until the 72 hours. So I'm just gonna slide this off of our wheel, and then you guys will be able to see the final product. I love how this turned out. This is such a cool technique to try. If you guys try this, let us know. We would love to see pictures of your final product. And if you're new here, I would make sure you click subscribe and hit the post bell notification so you never miss any of our future crafts. See you guys next time. Bye.